They applauded me on stage like I was a hero. 30 seconds later, they gave my job to the CEO's nephew. No warning, no conversation, just a champagne toast and a replacement. What they didn't know was this: the systems keeping their company alive weren't actually theirs. And at exactly 9 o'clock am the next morning, everything they relied on quietly stopped working. Let me tell you how fast respect disappears when people think they own you. One minute, you're the reason a company is still breathing. The next minute, you're background noise with a champagne flute pointed in your direction like a polite goodbye. The ballroom was packed. Executives, board members, regional directors. All dressed like success had always been guaranteed. Crystal glasses, soft jazz, a massive screen behind the stage glowing with gold numbers, revenue up, margins recovered, efficiency finally out of the red. Those numbers, that was me. Every system, every process, every miraculous turnaround they'd been bragging about for months, I built it, I fought for it, I dragged it into place while people above me said things like, "Let's not overthink the details." Jonathan stood at the front of the room like a king about to bless his court. The CEO smiled, locked in, perfect posture. He raised his glass. "I want to take a moment to recognize Oakley Blair," he said. My name echoed through the room. Polite applause followed, not loud, not emotional, professional clapping. The kind people do when they know the praise is ceremonial. "Her work stabilizing our operations this year has been exceptional," Jonathan continued. "She helped pull Crescent Dynamics back from the edge." Back from the edge was an understatement. When I joined 14 months earlier, the company was bleeding money, missing shipments, and flirting with covenant violations. Vendors were whispering, banks were watching. The clients were getting nervous. I fixed all of it. The screen behind him flipped through slides. Crisis to clarity, 12-month transformation, green arrows pointing up, red flags gone, metrics glowing like proof of genius. Not once did my name appear on the slides. Jonathan smiled wider. He shifted his stance slightly, making sure the cameras caught his good angle. "But as we move into our next phase of aggressive growth," he said, voice sliding into that rehearsed investor call tone, "we need leadership aligned with the long-term vision I've been building for over 2 decades. My stomach tightened. "Which is why tonight I'm proud to announce that my nephew, Tyler Brennan, will be stepping into the role of Chief Operations Officer. Effective immediately. There it was, my job, my role. The position he promised me if I delivered results. The room exploded into louder applause, real applause this time. Tyler walked onto the stage in a custom suit that probably cost more than I'd spent on rent in 6 months. He shook Jonathan's hand for exactly the right amount of time while photographers snapped away. Humble smile, determined expression, corporate prince. I didn't clap. I stood near the back of the ballroom next to the people who actually understood how the company worked. Warehouse managers who could recite inventory counts from memory. Logistics coordinators who knew which carriers always showed up late. Analysts who'd spent the past year learning my systems because the old ones were held together with duct tape and blind hope. Behind Jonathan, the screen cycled again. Revenue graphs, margin recovery, efficiency metrics. Every data point came from systems I built quietly, methodically, without applause. Jonathan kept talking about legacy, about vision, about family values in business. Family values. Tyler had been with the company for 8 months. Most of that time he spent in meetings learning terminology. I'd spent 14 months pulling this company out of a nosedive that would have ended in liquidation. I didn't wait for the speech to end. I turned around and walked out. No dramatic exit, no confrontation. Just quiet steps down a hallway lined with framed awards and magazine covers featuring Jonathan's face. Past the executive wing with thick carpets and original artwork. Past doors I'd never been invited to enter. No one stopped me. No one said my name. Their attention was locked on the stage, on Tyler. In the future, they'd just been told to celebrate. Jonathan's office door was open when I reached it. He was already inside, having somehow slipped out during the applause. His jacket hung on the back of his chair. He was pouring bourbon from a crystal decanter, looking satisfied with himself. "Oh," he said when he noticed me, warm, casual, like we were old friends. "Hell of a night, isn't it? You should be proud." "You told me results were all that mattered," I said. "They do," he replied smoothly. He took a sip. You delivered exceptional results, but operations and leadership are different skill sets. Tyler has the background for where we're going next. Background. He has an MBA from a school his family donated a library to, I said. I have 12 years of operational experience across 4 industries. I just pulled your company out of a nosedive. Jonathan set his glass down and looked at me like I was a disappointed employee, not the reason his company still existed. You're upset, he said, I get it. But this isn't about diminishing what you accomplished, it's about strategic positioning. You promised me this role, I said. You'll be taken care of, he replied, already reaching into his desk drawer. He slid a small cream-colored envelope across the polished surface toward me. Inside was a gift card, $100 to a high-end spa downtown. Take some time off, Jonathan said, gesturing at it like it was generous. You've been running hard all year, go relax, recharge, you earned it. I stared at the card, $100. Roughly what I'd spent on coffee during the first month alone when I was working 18-hour days trying to untangle their catastrophic inventory system. I didn't raise my voice, I didn't give him the satisfaction of watching me lose control. I slid the card into my bag. Thank you, I said, his eyebrows lifted slightly, like he expected more. That's it, he said. That's it? I walked out, down the elevator, through the lobby, out into the November cold where my breath formed clouds in the air. Jonathan thought that was the end of it, that I'd accepted his valuation of my work, my year, my future. What he didn't understand was this. The systems keeping Crescent Dynamics operational weren't actually theirs, and at exactly 9 o'clock the next morning they were about to find that out. People love to talk about power like it lives in job titles. CEO, VP, director, officer, nice words, big fonts on LinkedIn, but power doesn't actually live there, not really. Power lives in what breaks when you walk away. And Jonathan thought power was his champagne toast. What he didn't realize was that while he was busy planning legacy speeches and promoting family, I had already learned a hard lesson years earlier. Never build something critical unless you control the keys. I didn't storm home that night. I didn't call a friend to vent. I didn't pour a drink and spiral. I drove 4 blocks away to my office, the small one, the quiet one. The one that didn't have marble floors or framed magazine covers. The one that actually mattered. Blair Systems Integration. That was the company name on every invoice Jonathan had ever signed for operational support. The same company that technically owned the platform Crescent Dynamics had been using to run its entire operation for the past year. When Jonathan hired me 14 months earlier, I didn't come in naive. I'd already been burned twice. At one company, I rebuilt their entire logistics pipeline. 6 months later, once everything stabilized, they brought in a process improvement consultant, asked me to train them, then eliminated my role. At another, I designed a forecasting model that saved them millions. The exec team presented it as their innovation. My bonus was a thank you email and a layoff during restructuring. So when Jonathan said, we need someone to stabilize operations, I heard something else entirely. We need someone to fix this so we can stop panicking. I agreed to come in, but not as just an employee. I made sure the systems were delivered through my company. The data layer, the integrations, the dashboards, automation, all of it. Crescent didn't own it, they licensed it. Their legal team reviewed the agreement, I approved it. Jonathan signed it without reading past the executive summary because that's what guys like him do. Contracts are for lawyers. Vision is for leaders. There was a clause buried deep in the agreement. Not hidden, just ignored. It said that if Crescent materially changed the operational authority of Blair Systems' designated technical lead without prior written agreement, Blair Systems could immediately restrict or terminate access. At the time, it felt like a seatbelt, something you hope you never need. That night, standing alone in my office, I opened the admin console. Everything looked normal. License status, active. Support contract, active. Oversight, Oakley Blair. Below that were 3 buttons no one at Crescent had ever seen. Modify oversight status. Enable restricted access mode, terminate license. I didn't touch it. This wasn't about burning the place down. It was about reminding them what they were standing on. I clicked Modify oversight status. A prompt appeared. Has there been a material change to Blair Systems' designated technical oversight without prior written agreement? I clicked yes. Another prompt, do you want to initiate a restricted access transition? Yes, select delay before restricted mode activates. 0 hours, 12 hours, 24 hours, 72 hours. I chose 24 hours. Not because I wanted chaos, because I wanted them to have one business day to realize they'd screwed up and call me like adults. Final confirmation, restricted access will activate at 9 a.m. next business day. I clicked confirm, then I went home. I slept better than I had in months. At 8:59 a.m., Crescent Dynamics was running perfectly. Dashboards live, reports updating, facility managers checking overnight production. Logistics teams coordinating shipments. Finance pulling numbers for a client call. At 9 a.m., everything stopped moving, nothing crashed, nothing exploded, no error messages screamed, the system just froze. Historical data was still there, yesterday still existed, but today it wasn't showing up. Graphs stopped animating, timestamps didn't update, exports were grayed out, planning tools stalled, read-only. At 9:04 a.m. my phone started buzzing. Unknown number, I let it go to voicemail. At 9:06 it rang again, Jonathan, I let it ring twice, then I answered. Oakley, he said, skipping any greeting, we have a problem. No, I said calmly, you have a contract. The dashboards aren't updating, he snapped. Facilities can't see current data. Everything's frozen. Nothing's frozen, I replied. The license transitioned to restricted access mode at 9 a.m., exactly as outlined in your agreement with Blair Systems Integration. Silence. Then you can't just shut us down over a promotion. I didn't shut you down, I said. Your teams have full access to historical data. They can see everything up until this morning. They just can't generate new data until we talk. This is extortion. This is enforcement, I said. There's a difference. In the background, I could hear other voices. Someone saying logistics couldn't see inbound shipments. Someone else saying finance needed exports immediately. How long will it take to fix this? Jonathan demanded. That depends on what you mean by fix, I said. If you mean restoring full access in under an hour once we have a signed remediation agreement. If you mean replacing the entire platform so you don't need me anymore, I paused. 18 to 36 months, $8 to $12 million, assuming you find someone competent. Silence again. I'll come in at 2, Jonathan said tightly. Have your lawyer present, I replied. We can discuss your options. I hung up, I didn't pace, I didn't refresh my email every 2 minutes. I worked on other projects, a small client. Some documentation I'd been neglecting, I made lunch. At 1:55, I drove back to Crescent's headquarters. The conference room was packed, Jonathan at the head of the table, the CFO, general counsel, 2 board members. Tyler, sitting 2 seats down, arms crossed, jaw tight. A speakerphone glowed in the center of the table. I didn't sit right away. I took the spa gift card out of my bag and placed it in the middle of the table. What's that? Tyler asked. I looked at Jonathan. You remember this? He didn't answer. Let's not make this personal, the general counsel said. This isn't personal, I replied. That card is what Jonathan thought my work was worth. Today we're going to talk about what it actually costs to function without me. And that's when the real negotiation started. The air in that conference room was thick. Not tense like people yelling, tense like everyone suddenly realizing they walked into the wrong house and the locks just changed. Jonathan tried to keep control. He always did. Leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled, CEO posture fully engaged. Let's be rational, he said. No one is questioning your contribution. That's when I smiled. Because when someone starts with let's be rational, it means they're already losing. I'm not questioning my contribution either, I said. I'm pricing it. The CFO cleared his throat. Oakley, we just need to understand the scope of the issue. The scope, I repeated. The scope is that from 9 this morning until full access is restored, every decision you're making is based on yesterday's reality. I tapped the table lightly. Manufacturing is flying blind. Logistics doesn't know what arrived. Finance is reporting stale numbers. Client delivery timelines are guesses, and the longer this goes on, the risk multiplies. One of the board members leaned forward. Why wasn't this risk disclosed? I looked directly at Jonathan. It was, in the contract, the same one your legal team approved. Jonathan's jaw tightened. That clause was meant for hostile scenarios. And you created one, I replied. You publicly removed operational authority from the person contractually responsible for your operational infrastructure. Tyler shifted in his chair. This is insane, he said. You're acting like the system is the company. No, I corrected him calmly. I'm saying the system is why the company still exists. He scoffed. We can build a replacement. I turned toward him fully now. First time since the meeting started. Tyler, I said, not unkindly, do you know how many data sources feed that platform every night? He hesitated. 42 facilities, I continued. Each with different ERP customizations, vendor APIs, manual overrides, and legacy workarounds. The platform reconciles roughly 370,000 decisions per night. Silence. You don't replicate that with an intern and a Tableau license. The CFO exhaled slowly. How long, he asked, would it realistically take to replace this? 18 months minimum, I said, more likely 2 to 3 years. And that's if nothing breaks along the way. And cost, 8 to 12 million conservative estimate. Someone muttered, Jesus. Tyler leaned forward again. You're exaggerating. I didn't even look at him this time. The board member nearest him did. Son, he said gently, have you actually reviewed the platform architecture? Tyler opened his mouth. I closed it. That's when the power shift happened. Not loud, not dramatic. Just a quiet acknowledgement. Jonathan rubbed his temples. What exactly do you want? Finally, the right question. I slid a document across the table. 3 things. I held up one finger. First, a new 5-year licensing agreement at market rate, not the desperation discount you negotiated when this place was hemorrhaging cash. The CFO scanned the numbers. His eyes widened slightly. That's triple our current cost. Yes, I said, and still cheaper than rebuilding. Second finger. Second, explicit contractual language stating that any change to operational authority tied to Blair Systems requires my written consent. Not HR approval, not board approval. Mine, Tyler scoffed again. So you're untouchable? No, I replied. I'm protected. Big difference. Third finger. Third, an internal communication acknowledging that the platform is business-critical infrastructure and cannot be reassigned or altered without proper contractual modification. Jonathan stared at the paper. You want us to admit we screwed up. I want you to acknowledge reality, I said. You can spin it however you like. Strategic partnership, technology alignment, growth optimization, I don't care. The general counsel leaned back. This is aggressive. So was replacing me in public, I replied. Helen's voice came through the speakerphone. What happens if we don't agree? I met the speakerphone so she could see me. Then in 19 days, when the license renewal comes up, I don't renew. The platform disconnects completely. You keep your historical data, you lose the engine. Silence. Jonathan looked at Tyler. For the first time, there was no pride there, no confidence, just calculation. Can we discuss this privately? Jonathan asked the room. You already are, I said. Helen spoke again. Oakley, if we agree to these terms, how fast can you restore full access? 45 minutes, I replied, once the signed agreement hits my lawyer's inbox. The CFO checked his watch. It's 2:30, he said quietly. Jonathan closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, something had changed. Send us the final agreement, he said. I stood. You have until 5, I replied. After that, licensing fees increased 20% for every 24 hours of delay. That feels punitive, Tyler said sharply. That's risk pricing, I said. The longer you operate in restricted mode, the more liability I carry. I gathered my bag. I'll be at my office. I paused at the door and looked back once. Oh, and Jonathan, he looked up. Next time you want to give someone a spa gift card and replace them with your nephew, I smiled. Make sure they don't own the backbone of your company. I walked out. I didn't rush back to my office. That was intentional. If you move too fast after dropping a bomb, people think you're nervous. Desperate, negotiable, I wasn't. I grabbed a coffee, sat at my desk, answered emails from other clients. Reviewed a proposal like my entire former employer wasn't currently spiraling upstairs. Because here's the truth most executives don't like hearing. When you actually hold leverage, you don't need to act like it. At 2:47 p.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number, I let it ring. At 2:49, another call. At 2:52, an email hit my inbox. Subject, urgent agreement review from Crescent Dynamics Legal. I opened it. Attached was a revised contract draft, not signed, but close. They'd adjusted some wording, softened a few phrases, tried to frame it as a mutual realignment. Cute. I forwarded it to my lawyer with one line, review fast. They're sweating, then I waited. At 3:18, Jonathan called. This time I answered. Oakley, he said, voice tight but controlled. We're reviewing the agreement. Good, I replied. That's what lawyers are for. We want this resolved, he said. So do I. There was a pause, the kind where someone's pride is arguing with their survival instinct. You understand how this looks, he said. From the board's perspective, I do, I replied. It looks like they underestimated the wrong person. He exhaled sharply. We're prepared to move forward, but the 5-year term is non-negotiable, I cut in. You don't build dependency and then ask for flexibility. Silence again, then he said it. What if we adjust Tyler's role instead? There it was, the concession, not an apology, not accountability, but retreat. Tyler's role isn't my concern, I said. Authority is. At 3:41 my lawyer called. They're folding, he said. They want to sign just one more tweak. What tweak? They want the internal memo phrased as expanded partnership instead of corrective action. I smiled. Let them save face, I said, as long as the authority language stays. At 4:22 p.m. the final agreement came through, signed, all signatures present, 5-year term, licensing fee. $890,000 annually. Explicit authority clause, mine, no reassignment without written consent, no ambiguity, no loopholes. I forwarded it to my lawyer. Confirm execution, I said. Then I opened the admin console, the same screen as the night before. Crescent Dynamics restricted access mode, active 1 click, restore full access, confirmation prompt. I didn't hesitate. At 5:03 p.m. the system came back to life. Data began flowing, dashboards refreshed, exports re-enabled, production planners exhaled. The company breathed again. At 5:11 my phone buzzed, text message. Tennessee plant manager, whatever happened today, thank you, we were flying blind this morning. At 5:24 another message. Operations analyst, remind me to never play poker with you. Also respect. At 6:15 p.m. the internal memo went out, corporate polished, carefully worded, smiling through clenched teeth. Crescent Dynamics is pleased to formalize an expanded strategic partnership with Blair Systems Integration under the continued technical leadership of Oakley Blair. Translation. She's not going anywhere. Tyler wasn't mentioned by name in the ops section. He was refocusing on strategic initiatives, which is executive speak to get him away from anything he can break. I left my office after sunset. Cold air, quiet streets. And for the first time in months I felt light, not victorious, not smug, just aligned. That night I took the spa gift card out of my bag. The same one Jonathan had slid across his desk like a consolation prize. I didn't throw it away, I framed it, hung it on my office wall, not as a trophy, as a reminder. Because that card represented everything they got wrong about me. They thought I was temporary, they thought I was replaceable, they thought gratitude was enough. They forgot one thing, I built the thing that kept them alive. And I was smart enough to make sure it was never theirs to give away. The funny thing about power shifts, they're loud when they happen and silent afterward. No announcement, no apology tour, no dramatic exit, just distance. The morning after the agreement was signed, I walked into my office like nothing had happened. Same coffee, same inbox, same dashboards quietly doing the work nobody on that stage knew how to do, but the energy, completely different. People didn't avoid me, they deferred. Facility managers stopped checking first with executives and came straight to me. Analysts copied me on decisions before they even looped in their directors. Meetings suddenly waited until I arrived, not out of fear, out of clarity, because everyone had felt it. That moment when the system froze, that moment when the company held its breath, that moment when they realized how thin the ice really was. And once people feel that, they don't forget. Jonathan emailed me the next morning, short, polished, corporate. Thank you for your flexibility during yesterday's transition. Looking forward to our continued partnership. No apology, no acknowledgement, just future tense. I let it sit for 4 hours, then replied, happy to continue supporting Crescent's operational needs. I trust future organizational changes will involve appropriate advance consultation as outlined in our agreement. Professional, clean, sharp enough to sting, he never responded, and that told me everything. Tyler tried to stay visible. First, he showed up to meetings he didn't need to be in, asked questions that sounded strategic but landed hollow, tried to carve out a role that felt important. But here's the thing about being handed authority instead of earning it: people can tell. Within weeks, he was being looped out instead of looped in. Conversations paused when he spoke. Follow-ups never came. He wasn't hated. He was irrelevant. 3 months later, the internal email went out. Tyler Brennan has decided to pursue other opportunities. No farewell party, no big send-off, just a polite sentence and a quiet exit. 11 months total at the company, that was it. Jonathan stayed, he always would. Men like him don't disappear, they adapt. He became careful, consultative. Every time a decision touched operations, my name came up first. Not because he suddenly respected me, but because he respected the contract. And honestly, that was enough. The company kept growing, margins stabilized, delivery metrics stayed green, clients stopped calling with emergencies. I hired 2 more engineers at Blair Systems, not contractors, employees, people who reported to me, not Crescent. The distinction mattered. Every year the licensing fee adjusted upward exactly as written. No arguments, no delays. They paid on time, every time. The spa gift card still hangs on my wall. People ask about it. Clients, engineers, friends, I tell them it's my favorite piece of art because it reminds me of the moment everything changed. The moment someone tried to thank me instead of valuing me, the moment they thought access meant ownership, the moment they learned the difference. Here's the part nobody puts in business books. Most people don't lose leverage because they're incompetent. They lose it because they build value inside systems they don't control. They fix problems, they stabilize chaos, they make themselves indispensable. And then they hand the keys to someone who didn't bleed for it. I didn't make that mistake. I didn't threaten, I didn't yell, I didn't blow things up. I read the contract, I built something real. And when they tried to replace me with a last name and a handshake, I let reality do the talking. Because your value isn't your title, it's not your loyalty, it's not how hard you work. Your value is what stops working when you're gone. And if you're smart, you make sure someone notices before they try to pretend you're optional. That's the part they never teach you, and that's why I'm still here.